Everybody, first of all, thank you for tuning into the Flight Path podcast. My name's Tom Barclay, and today we interviewed Paz Pisarski. She's fantastic, and I really did enjoy this interview, and I even more enjoyed looking over the final edit. I think you're going to love this. Now, if you could, a rating would mean the world. Obviously, you don't have to, but if you could rate this podcast 5 stars, it would really mean the world to me and my team. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can follow us on Instagram at the Flight Path Pod. Again, it's a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts about this episode. Thank you. You're listening to the Flight Path podcast. Paz, thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I appreciate it. Now, I wanted to ask you a lot of really heavy questions, some light questions, but before we get into all that fun stuff, I want to know a bit about you. So first of all, how are you? Let's start with that.
Yeah, I'm fabulous. Thanks for having me.
You're doing fabulous. That's good. Okay, Paz, so how about you tell us a little bit about yourself? Keep it short. Just what do you do? How do you do it? Why do you do it? Stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely can do, Tom. So for me, I found myself at the intersection of building startups with founders and building communities for the past 6 years. And so I've grown up in Melbourne and have basically found myself building startup communities. It's something that I'm really passionate about, helping someone solve a problem, create a service or a product, and then build a community around them that impacts their life has been life-changing. And so I've done that for various organizations. I've done that for Sisterworks, which is a not-for-profit supporting asylum seeker women to build their own businesses. Yeah. I ran over 10 accelerator programs at RMIT Activator, supporting students, staff, and alumni to create startups and just innovate within the university. And as well, I joined one of Australia's largest startup communities. So they have over 60,000 people in the network. They're called the Startup Network. And I joined them as a community manager to really expand and grow their membership base for supporting founders, from anyone who just had an idea from in the shower to some of the biggest high growth scale-ups of Australia, like Linktree, Upbank, and Who Gives a Crap. And so along that way,
that's hilarious because we literally just had an order of Who Gives a Crap. It's at the door right now. I'm not joking.
Oh,
that's crazy.
Great products.
Yeah,
it's toilet paper. If anyone doesn't know what Who Gives a Crap is.
Yes.
I love that. Yeah. And I guess like during, those various roles of being a community manager, building startup communities, throw in a pandemic, like Melbourne was one of the most lockdown cities of the world. You know, we did hundreds of days of stage 4 lockdown with 5K radiuses. And so a lot of businesses and founders felt the impacts, as everyone understands. But so did community managers, because founders were relying on us, but there weren't many people who were building communities of founders in Melbourne, in one of the most lockdown cities in the world. It was really niche. And so as a result, I started reaching out to community managers. I said, hey, are you having challenges at the moment? What are you trying to achieve? What kind of support are you looking for? And how can we help each other? And I had about 50 different calls, and we organized a meetup group to actually support one another. This was in June 2021. In between the 4th and 5th Melbourne lockdowns. And we caught up at the Commons in Cremorne with myself and my 2 co-founders, Melia Rayner and Jala Alex. And it went viral. And this is how we accidentally started a business. So we had hundreds of community managers all around Australia and New Zealand sign up through our Airtable registration link to join these support networks. And, over a year, it just consistently grew through word of mouth. And July last year in 2022, I quit my full-time job, registered the Community Collective as a business, and took a punt to co-design an offering that would support more people. And so as a result, we're 18 months in and we've built 4 different offerings.
Only 18 months and you've done this much. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been amazing. We basically spent 3 months co-designing a program experience for community builders, and we've run it 3 times now. We have over 116 alumni who've gone through our program. And we also do recruitment, helping companies hire community managers. And as well, we do consulting to help businesses build a strategy. So it's been wild. We just hired our 4th team member, and it's officially, we're here to stay. So now I'm a founder.
That's a good
building
feeling,
a business.
Isn't it? Yeah.
And on the side, I write relaxation music for film and meditation.
I'm blown away, Paz. And there's a few questions. There's plenty of questions that were just coming into the top of my head. I've thrown away the script. I had a script. I've got a few in my head now. But one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because you said you started your accidental business, which is now turned into the Community Collective, as during the lockdowns, as you said, the 4th or the 5th one. Were you scared? Are you still scared? Were you scared back then? Was fear ever a thing, or did you just go for it?
I would offer a reframe. I think it was excitement because I just was connected to so many people who were having so many challenges and just saw an incredible opportunity
Mm,
to support people.
mm,
Also to support myself. I was also
mm.
going through a lot of challenges. I,
Yeah,
I had a panic attack at one point. I was like, I don't know how to manage this community. And I didn't know who to turn to. I was like, what is a community manager? Like, what is
yeah.
our job? And I
Mm,
guess for people who don't understand what a community manager is, you
that's
can
good.
kind of think of it like a concierge at a hotel. So a community manager for a business is the first person you meet. They welcome you in, say, take a co-working space as a community manager. They onboard you, they'll show you the desk, they'll organize these weekly lunches. You
Oh,
can ask them for connections and networks. They send all the comms and the emails. Like they're the beating heart
mm,
of creating a sense of belonging for a group of customers or a group in the business's audience to connect and gain more value. And as a result,
right.
this is beneficial for a business because it increases customer retention, increases referrals. People feel this like affiliation to the company. They become evangelists and advocates and they want to like grow the
Yeah,
business together.
yeah, yeah.
So, you're creating this like cult like status, not actually a cult, but like a cult like status, in the words of Tim Duggan.
I was
And
just. You keep bringing up things in my room that I was just reading it.
ah,
It's right there. That's crazy.
amazing. You've got great
Yeah.
taste. It's a good
Yeah,
book.
I appreciate that. And it's funny because when you say community managers, I was immediately thinking like super fans. It's a word I like using. You're generating super fans for a business. People have like audiences and followers, and they think that they've got people they could sell to immediately, but they have like 2 or 3 super fans who would die for the business. So would you say you're generating those super fans, and that's the job of a community manager to make people into more like loving of the business, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And that's definitely one responsibility and an outcome of having
Mm,
a community manager in a business.
mm,
Really a core function of a community manager would be to identify if there is an opportunity to build a community for a business. Not all businesses need to have a
yeah,
community,
yeah,
all
yeah.
businesses will have an audience, but the moment it becomes a community is as soon as you find a way to connect your audience on a regular and consistent basis in order for them to support one another. So instead of a one-to-many communication style, it becomes this many-to-many.
Mm,
Audiences and customers can catch up on monthly meetups, online networking,
mm.
conferences annually. And, a community manager will have a very strategic eye. They will be very data driven and they were focused on creating high growth outcomes for both the members in the community and the business who is investing in the community.
I see. That's a great way to put it. Wow. So essential, which is very important. Yeah, that reminds me. Like, I was actually in Melbourne, I think 2 or 3 days ago, something like that. And when I was there, I wanted to go somewhere to work, and I went to the Hub. Hub Australia. Just because when you mentioned WeWork, it just got the wheels turning. And you have to pay to be in the Hub and everything. But I was like, oh, I'm only here for 40 minutes, and the lady just said, "Oh, just go in." Even that little little part there made me a fan.
Yeah.
So what you said about cult status and being a community manager, I think that could translate how important it is as well. But yeah, so well, first of all, thank you for introducing yourself. That was a fantastic introduction. And now I want to go on to the challenges you experienced along the way. So
Mhm.
you said at one point, I'm trying to remember everything you say. It's very hard for me, but I'm new to it. But before you mentioned the fact that you had a panic attack because you didn't know how to manage your community at the start, right? And I can imagine that's probably a hard thing to think about. But at the moment, how did you get around that? A lot of
Mm.
people quit. The point I'm trying to get to is a lot of people would quit at that point.
Mhm.
It's just you just started. You just hit a huge wall. You didn't expect it, I would imagine, and then it all goes to, excuse my French, shit. So how'd
Yeah.
you get out of it?
Yeah. It's really tough. I think the biggest cause was feeling overwhelmed.
Mm,
Throw in like 8 months of being locked down in a house, living with no one else, working full time from your room and only being able to leave an hour a day, and
yeah.
previously managing a community of, thousands of people, predominantly from an in-person co-working space.
Mm,
Before I would be in the office every day, you see all the members, you're running programs, coffees, lunches, you're a team of 25. And then in one moment, you're at home alone, 8 months, fully moving your whole community online when you've never really used Zoom and Miro and all these different tech tools. So there's a high pressure. And as well, I really felt the impacts that our founders were feeling. I did over 300 courtesy calls to members in our community at RMIT Activator to check in with founders and just say, how are you? And the stories I heard were why people were closing down their businesses. They'd like sold their house and moved elsewhere because they had to. Some were doing so well that they hired so many more team members, but just could not keep up with the demand. And I felt, I really took that on as my own when really, I shouldn't have taken on their problems as my own. But I think, at that point in my career, I was, just caught up in that. So that brought me a lot of overwhelm and anxiety because not one person can solve the problems of thousands of founders during a pandemic. So
well, that reputation foregoes you as well, because like what you said about taking people's problems on as your own can make you look like a nice person, right? And I imagine that you are. And what's funny, and the reason I say this and the reason I interrupt is because plenty of people, I spoke to a few people before we had this podcast and I mentioned you. I was like, I'm going to be interviewing Paz. And they're like, oh, Paz Pisarski. Is that how you pronounce your name, by the way? Pisarski?
That's it.
Is that it? Yeah. They're like, she's wonderful. She's such a lovely person. She's happy. She's bright, stuff like that. So just adding to your point, it really foregoes you reputation wise.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's so nice.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. And I guess to answer your question of like, how did I deal with that?
Hmm.
Well, one, you got to like feel the feels. Like I did a lot of journaling, like almost just like write out, okay, like what is causing me so much stress and overwhelm, and then really like get it out of your head. I was speaking to friends and family at the time, but then I wanted to get help from people who had been and faced these types of challenges before. So I did lots of Google searching. I just said community manager support, and I found communities in America. I found communities also in Australia, but there wasn't anything that really resonated that was for community managers in the startup space, like in Melbourne. So then I just thought, okay, I've got to find people who are experiencing similar challenges to me. So I reached out to my own network. I say, hey, do you know any other community builders in the startup space based in Melbourne at the moment? And they're like, oh, yep. Here's this person, this person, this person, this person. And honestly, it was like the most helpful thing because I then caught up with all these people and just felt heard and seen and not alone. And then we bound together and supported one another. So I hate to say it, but community was my approach to helping me get out of that situation and learn and grow,
Yeah. It
I
seems
also
to be
started
quite
meditating. I learned
that
Vedic
would be good.
meditation. That changed my entire life. So I meditate twice a day, every day for the past 3 years. And so Vedic meditation, Eastern technique from India, it changed my life.
Yeah, it's funny how many people instantly, and I don't know, I don't know the word. I'm reading the dictionary. I'm trying to learn more words. It's hard, it's a big book. But there was this word where people are, I want to say reprehensible. People find meditation and yoga and stuff like that reprehensible, but people forget that it's incredibly good for, as you said, for your mindset, for your discipline and everything like that. And speaking of discipline, would you say you're a disciplined person?
I'm so self-disciplined.
Is that a new skill or an old skill?
I learnt that through classical Suzuki guitar training. I would definitely put down having high grit, stamina, and discipline down to learning a musical instrument since I was 4 years old.
Right. So speaking of discipline, what time did you wake up this morning? On the spot. Test, alert.
I got up at 5:52 a.m. I spoke at a conference this morning in London at 6:10 a.m. So it was
How am I the one drinking coffee and you're not? I'm confused. I've been messing this up the whole interview.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, beautiful. So, you seem pretty busy, right? I'd imagine you definitely are. And you said I can't remember exactly how many months you started your business, but it was recent, right? It was quite recent. So when you first began and you started getting more and more meetings, and I'd imagine you were pretty good with it because you had community management experience in the past, but you moved to online. So how did you manage your time? How'd you not, fall victim to the comfort of being at home, being able to sleep in, or were you just disciplined and you just kept treating it like a normal work day? How'd you get through it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've learned, one from supporting so many founders over the years, and then also being a founder, the biggest thing I would bring it down to is probably three things. One, you have to have a strategy. You need to have your North Star for what the hell you are supposed to be focusing on that will drive business growth and deliver impact for your members. So sitting down and having a strategy day and fully dictating, like, what is our North Star metric? What are the 3 goals we want to achieve in the next 6 months? What are the 3 metrics that ladder up to those individual goals that will tell us if we're on track or not? And then every month I'm going to report on the goals and the metrics to keep me accountable to understand if I'm getting there. Like, that has been the biggest beating heart. And then, I put it as a Monday reoccurring weekly invite in my calendar, which is to set my priorities for the week. And it has our strategy in there. So that I'm constantly reminded of it. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So that helps me make decisions.
Wonderful.
Number 2, as how do you deal with so many competing priorities, is making sure you have incredible support networks around you. So I have a board of 5 advisors for the community collective, Melia, Jala, Kim, Ben, and Dan. They are paramount to helping me grow because I don't have all the skills. I don't have all the knowledge. I have the drive and the passion and the time and the dedication and the discipline, but I need to surround myself with people who are 10, 20, 30 years ahead of where I am now to continuously learn and just course correct and keep me on track.
I see.
So number 1, strategy. Number 2, advisors. Number 3 is having very clear boundaries, because the lesson that I learned time and time again is you kind of become a founder and you're like, sky's the limit. I can do anything. And I also really enjoyed what I was working on, but I just ran myself to the ground. I was working so much. And I also didn't tone down the other areas of my life, which I didn't have full perspective on. And now I can understand what I have capacity for. But I overcommitted myself. I wanted to do too much in short amounts of time in all areas of my life, and I burnt out. And that was at the end of last year. And so now having very clear boundaries of like, these are my set working hours. I take off at least 2 to 3 months off a year, which is crazy. But that time off keeps me driven during the time on. And then when I'm off, I recharge and actually gain a lot more perspective. So having clear boundaries of what I work on, when I work, and who I work with, and what I say yes and no to keeps me on top of competing priorities and being busy.
Yeah. Wonderful. Have you heard of that principle, hell yeah or no?
No.
Oh, well, it's basically either something is hell yes, I'll go do it, or it's absolutely not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's an old principle.
Oh, yeah.
Now, as we mentioned before, you are busy. Thanks for explaining all that. But what I wanted to know specifically, what are the 3 apps, and I ask everybody this, what are the 3 apps you find the most important with your business and personal life? If you could think of 3, like, for example, Slack, Google Calendar, and like Spark email, something like that.
Yeah, I love this. Very practical. The 3 tech tools that I could not live without are Superhuman. It is a tech tool created in America to help you manage your inbox. I get hundreds of emails a week, and it just helps me get back to everyone and stay responsive and not feel overwhelmed and drowning in my inbox. So they are number 1. Cool. Number 2 is Todoist.
Yes.
They are, productivity platform, basically helps me create a to-do list, and I can schedule when to do tasks, which is just great. So that's the second one. And then the third one is Airtable. I've built an entire business on Airtable. It's like our calendars, it's operational processes. They are all of the data that we ever have. It's a CRM, forms, calendar, project planner. I use it for everything.
Why'd you choose Airtable and not like Monday.com or Notion? Curious about this.
Well, at the time of starting the community collective with Melia and Jala, they were really skilled in Airtable and vouched for it. So I was like, great, let's do that.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, Airtable's fun. I can't figure it out. But yeah. But wonderful. Okay, cool. And I'm assuming you just run your calendar off like Google Calendar and it just like sorts itself out that way. You don't have any like special AI tools to mix everything together, stuff like that.
Just Google Calendar, and I do a lot of scheduling and reminders in our like business calendar. So like monthly meetup on the first Wednesday of every month. We send our newsletter on the first day of every month. We do our GBU advisor update on the 7th of every month. So yeah, I use calendars as those kind of reoccurring tasks to keep on top of.
Well, speaking of AI, has AI implemented your business at all? You know, from when it started, when the boom happened, to all the way from now? Do you use it positively? Is it a negative? I'd love to know.
Yeah, AI has been phenomenal. I have been waiting for something like this. I remember actually meeting a founder 2 years ago that basically was like a version of Chat GPT, and I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And so it's like full mainstream now, which is awesome to see. And so yeah, I use Chat GPT, AI, I use a lot of generative AI daily, basically to help me synthesize a lot of data. I get a lot of feedback from members, a lot of pulse check surveys, feedback forms. So I would import a lot of data into, say, something like ChatGPT or Bard by Google, and have it summarize points for me and key action items. It helps me come up with new event ideas, helps me write better email taglines that I could ever come up with. And so, yeah, I use it daily. I actually wrote a full article about how community builders can use AI in their roles, and interviewed over 15 different community builders and understood how they are using it. So I'll share the link with you for.
I'll be sure to link it in the description.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so you're a musician, right? And you enjoy it. It's your passion, right? It's not a job, it's a passion, yeah? Yeah, wonderful. So how do you, because I struggle with this myself, how do you stop your music from becoming a job? And how do you keep it a hobby and a passion?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of creatives fall down that path of, when you put too much pressure on your own creativity to be monetized and become a business, it starts to become really stressful. You know, You're doing it full time, you're monetizing it, you're quantifying your creativity, and you're putting a lot of pressure to drive revenue. So that can, stagnate the passion that you have for it, because now you're doing it full time, and actually now in your spare time you want to do something completely different. So for context, I started playing guitar from when I was 4 years old. I've been classically trained by the Suzuki method, which is a Japanese style of learning an instrument in Australia, with one of the country's best guitar teachers. So I learnt with her for about 20 years, and studied in Spain for a year to learn flamenco guitar. And performed.
I wish I could play it.
It's so beautiful.
Flamenco.
It's amazing.
Wow.
It's
would
amazing.
it be bad if I asked you if you could play some now, or would that be too much?
Oh, I don't have my guitar set up with the mic at the moment.
You can use mine.
I will send with you. Yeah. Pass it over. I'll send you some of my music online. You can have a listen.
I would love to. Yeah, and I'll put that in the description again, because flamenco is awesome, and it's one of those, you can play at any instance, no matter what club you're at, no matter what place you're at, and then everyone's going to jam along to it.
Exactly.
Not exactly play Metallica at a jazz club, so
it's stunning. It's stunning. And I think one of the things that I learned from music at an early age was, I had to make a decision at one point. I was like, do I want to do this full time? And I looked at the musicians who was 10, 20 years ahead of me and their lives, and I just thought, no, I don't actually want to be doing that. I don't want to be playing gigs full time and constantly releasing music, a lot of travel. So instead I decided to, always have it as a side business. But I did sign with a label in Brisbane in 2021, and I continue to write music across 4 different alias accounts and release
that would have been stressful,
online. Oh, no, it's not stressful. No? You just bulk record twice a year and schedule about 6 months of music.
I had a similar problem. So, well, not a problem, but I had a problem related to that. So I started music while I was in school. So I graduated in 2019. And what I noticed, and the reason I bring this up, is because when I started, and I really attacked it, like it was all I did, right? So grades dropped, everything like that, but I attacked it, and it actually went really well. So I'm really happy with it, and it's still up and it still goes okay, which is good. But the issue I noticed is that while I was attacking music, everyone was like, "Oh, what about the money? Where's the money?" And then when I started attacking business, everyone was like, "Where's the music?" You know what I mean? So did you ever get that sort of criticism, or was everyone pretty supportive from the get-go?
Everyone was pretty supportive. I think from the music side, because I decided this is not going to be a full-time business, it just became, a really creative outlet for me. I do it when I feel fueled too. And when the business is going, when the community collective is growing really quickly, I'll park the music for a little bit. But then when it's a bit quieter, I'll book in more weddings and gigs and play concerts and things like that. But I do that to fuel me. And the people around me have been very, very supportive. If anything, my biggest critic was my own internal criticism when I wasn't sure if I wanted it to go one way or another. And I'd be like, oh, why aren't you making consistent passive income? Or why aren't you booking these big gigs? And, but when I kind of dropped the pressure of it becoming that full-time business, that talk just disintegrated as well.
Nice. Well, question, if life went the other way, right? So if everything flipped around and today we're in an alternate universe where you were a big musician, big music, I wanted to say movie star, but I had the wrong word in my head, musician, right? And it all went that way, and community collective didn't exist, business didn't exist, it was just music and business in that genre, right? Do you reckon you'd be happy?
I mean, if I was playing concerts in Spain along the coast and releasing a couple vinyls every year and I was fulfilled and happy with the people around me, then yeah, I think that sounds freaking amazing.
It does.
If,
But
if
the
it went
reason
that
I
way,
ask is
amazing. But the
because
thought
there's
of
a
the
fire
community
in you.
collective
Yeah.
not existing makes me really sad because of all the stories of how many lives it's impacted for the better.
And that's why I ask. That's actually why I ask, because again, I feel as though you have this fire in you that is only fueled by influencing the masses, but positively, like you did before. And again, you can do that in music, but I feel like if you didn't have your business and you weren't doing that as well, and you didn't have an equal mix of both, I don't know. I feel like you'd be happy, but you wouldn't be fulfilled. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting take. I think there's elements of I love having the both because writing music uses a completely different aspect of my brain than it does working on the community collective and like executing a strategy. So I love the balance of the two.
Well, the reason I ask, Paz, is because a lot of people, especially nowadays, especially people my age, right? They seem to be struggling with that imposter syndrome. Like you've got people online who are rich and have Bugattis and cars and Lamborghinis and people making music and people performing on stage. And that's always been the case, but it's never been so readily accessible like it is now, where you can just fire up your phone. It's the first thing you see, right? And again, the reason I ask is because if you were making music, but you're also trying to start a business and you see these people so far ahead in music and so far ahead in business, you naturally feel like, oh, I should drop music. I wish I'd just put everything into business and just give up on music. And when I did that, for example, I gave up on guitar and I completely forgot how to play guitar. I suck now, right? So it's the same thing. So I would love to know your advice to that person who's sitting in their room right now, who's in like a double entendre. They've got their laptop in one hand, where they've got this Shopify store or this business that they've started up, and they've got their piano and they've got their hands on the keys. What would your advice to that person be? Keep going with both or focus on one?
Well, I read a really beautiful quote, which is, you can have everything you want in your life, just not all at once.
I love that.
You can have everything that you want in your life, just not all at once. And what I take away from this quote is that we can be everything that we dream to be, that we aspire to have. We just can't get so caught up in doing everything all the time right now in the immediate future, because that causes the stress, that causes the self-talk, that causes the burnout and the overwhelm and the panic attacks, But when you realize that, I think you should have seasons in your life where you have a core focus and a priority. The past year and a half, 2 years, the community collective has been my priority. And for the next 2 to 5 years, the community collective will be my priority because that's where I'm needed. But it doesn't mean I fully neglect and stop doing the music. And so where my tangible advice comes in here is build daily habits. I remember you being really curious about how do you actually make time to practice? How do you just not forget to do that? Where do you find the inspiration, motivation when you're so busy in so many other areas of your life? Completely. And it's finding the things that fuel you. So for example, I run a business full time. I have a life outside of that as well. And then I have a music business. And the only thing that will get me to practice is when I book in a gig. And I got asked to play at a friend's wedding. I sent them a list of songs. They chose the 3 songs, and then I'm practicing. And I'm practicing for them, but I'm practicing for myself. Whereas if I didn't book any gigs in, I would very rarely pick up the guitar. So I know what works for me. So my habit of booking in a gig every 2 months will give me enough dose of motivation and inspiration to keep playing the guitar and never drop that skill.
I see. Okay, Paz, winding back to the start, right? You just started, it's 12 months ago. How many months ago was it since Community Collective? I'm a little rusty.
I founded it as a company in 2022 last year, but then it started as a meetup group in June 2021.
Okay, so in June 2021, what do you wish you knew? What would Paz now tell Paz then?
I think if I had my time again to build a business, what I wish I knew is to make sure that you prioritize yourself. I think when you start a business, it's very easy to prioritize everything else before your own well-being and your own energy, because it's freaking exciting and it's invigorating and it's inspiring and it's growing and there's interest and demand. What's unique about my experience is that we kind of struck a chord with a group of people that we didn't expect to take off, and it's grown so well that I've quit my job and have been building this to keep up with the demand. It was never my decision to be a founder or build a company, but I couldn't not support the people. But I wish that I prioritized myself more. So the best thing I did was I wrote a list of my top 5 priorities in my life. And number 1 is Paz, me. If I'm not energized, fulfilled, and well rested, I can't do anything else in my life to support others. Then it's my family, my partner, my friends, and my business. There's a lot of priorities that come before my business.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to remember that, because I can't sacrifice my own life, my own happiness as a founder at the expense of building a business. So always make time for yourself, have those boundaries, and just enjoy the ride.
That's wonderful advice, Paz. Okay, we'll cut it there because I know you have a meeting, right? I know you have a meeting in a few minutes. I don't want to make you late, but it's been wonderful. I've really enjoyed this. This has been one of the most insightful episodes we've done, I think. And I'm looking forward to having this out to the internet so everyone can see it. Oh,
thank you so much, Tom. I'm so, chuffed. You're such a great presenter and you talk so well. You have a really great tone of voice.
I appreciate
that. So you're just born for podcast interviews.
Oh my God. My heart. Thank you. I appreciate that, Paz. It means a lot.